What is up, UFO crew? Today we are exploring the mysterious Skinwalker Ranch. There are many things in this world that seem to defy explanation, and these mysterious incidents often have a habit of collecting around a single enigmatic place. Places like Skinwalker Ranch. Around the world, there are legends of humans who can take the form of unnaturally powerful animals. In France, the loup-garou is basically the French version of a werewolf. A man wearing a wolfskin cloak with the power to turn into a beast at will. The loup-garou was known for having vicious intelligence and going on unstoppable murder sprees across the French countryside. Not only were they smarter, stronger, and faster than a normal wolf, they were said to have survived serious injuries, continuing in their attacks. If you managed to cut a piece off of one in battle, like an ear, an eye, or a limb, the body part would still be missing when the creature turned back into a man, making it easier to identify the culprit. In Ireland and Scotland, there are legends about women who come out of the sea. They're called selkies, and in some of the stories, they wear sealskin cloaks. The Selkie women are said to be enchantingly beautiful, and fishermen who come across them on the beach often try to take them as their wives. The thing about Selkies is that they always return to the sea, even if it takes years for them to do so, leaving their human husbands behind, broken-hearted and alone. The Inuit people of the north have similar stories, including one about a man who one day remarks that his wife smells like a fox, at which point she puts on her foxskin cloak and transforms into an actual fox, running away from him never to be seen again. There are many more legends involving mysterious creatures that seem to blur the line between humans and animals. One thing that most of them have in common is the idea that the magic of transformation lies in the skin. The Navajo legends of the Skinwalkers tell a similar tale of witches who can take the form of animals by wearing that animal's skin. Skinwalkers have also been said to steal people's faces, transforming into a copy of that person to take their place or impersonate them while the Skinwalker carried out its sinister agenda. Many stories warn that if you accidentally make eye contact with a Skinwalker, they can possess your body and force you to do their evil bidding. Skinwalkers usually took the form of local animals like foxes, coyotes, wolves, eagles, bears, owls, or crows so that they could blend into their surroundings easier with all the regular animals that live there. Even when they weren't in animal form, they were said to be incredibly fast. Apparently, they also had a complete lack of respect for the dead. They could often be found digging up graves to turn the corpses into a poisonous powder that would kill their enemies. Beyond their physical abilities, the Skinwalkers had all kinds of magical powers at their disposal. They could reportedly read and control minds, put curses on people or entire tribes, and spread sickness and disease. Understandably, the Navajo were terrified of them. They were especially afraid of the thought that at any moment a Skinwalker could be among them, posing as a member of the tribe or watching from a nearby tree in the form of an unsuspecting bird. Skinwalkers weren't a separate race of monsters that could make themselves look like humans. They were humans, or at least they used to be. As mentioned earlier, the Skinwalkers were considered to be a kind of witch. People who had spiritual powers are common in traditional Navajo tales. Healers and spiritual leaders were highly respected, but if somebody with this kind of power were to use it for evil, they would eventually become a Skinwalker. In particular, it was said that Skinwalkers had to perform an initiation ritual that involved murdering a close family member, usually a brother or sister. You could tell a Skinwalker apart from normal animals by their eyes and the tracks they left behind. Their eyes would remain normal human eyes while they were transformed, and their tracks would either be the same as their human tracks or much larger than that of a regular wild animal. If you shine a light, like a candle or a torch, on a Skinwalker's face, their eyes would glow a sinister red. As intelligent and powerful as they were, Skinwalkers didn't work alone. They were part of a cult-like group that would come together to plot evil deeds, initiate new members, and collaborate on spells that required more power to cast. Much like the story of Rumpelstiltskin, one of the ways you could take away a Skinwalker's power was to call out to them with their original human name. The widespread fear of these immensely powerful beings led to the Navajo witch purge of 1878. 4 years earlier, a tribe of Navajo people were forced to move from their native land to a reservation by the US government. This was a period of great suffering for the tribe, and the government, eventually recognizing their mistake, allowed the tribe to move back home. Things had been so bad on the reservation that suspicions began to grow within the tribe that some of their members had become skinwalkers to survive the harsh conditions. When they got back to their home territory, they began a witch hunt that ended with 40 people dead. All of them were suspected to be skinwalkers, so they were murdered out of fear. The Ute people who lived near the same area as the Navajo had been partially responsible for the tribe's suffering. The Ute tribe had helped the US government kick the Navajo out of their lands, forcing them to walk 300 miles in unimaginable conditions so that the Ute tribe could occupy additional space in their absence. It is because of this that the Skinwalkers are said to frequent the area known as Skinwalker Ranch as part of a curse put on the Utes by the Navajos for their betrayal.
Skinwalker Ranch is located in northeastern Utah, in an area that was once dominated by the Ute tribe. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, white settlers began to move to the area, including the couple who built the original ranch. The property was built around 1905 and was called the Myers Ranch, after the couple who lived there. Edith and Kenneth Myers never reported anything strange happening on the property, but everyone else seemed to have something to say about the odd happenings around the place. For context, the ranch itself is a little over 500 acres of Utah desert. It's hot and dry with open fields that allow you to see across a great distance, and apparently there was plenty to see. If the Navajo and Ute legends are to be believed, the place is crawling with skinwalkers posing as local wildlife. Most of the recent accounts make it sound like the skinwalkers are usually up to hijinks these days instead of sacrificial murders. There have been reports of them doing things like peering in people's windows at night or running in front of cars to try to cause accidents. That being said, they're still plenty terrifying according to the alleged eyewitnesses. The skinwalkers aren't the only strange things to be spotted near the ranch, though. As early as the 1700s, there have been reported sightings of unexplained lights appearing in the sky overhead. In the 1950s, a high school science teacher began collecting stories of all the reported sightings in the area and later published them in a book titled The Utah UFO Display, a Scientist's Report. A local newspaper, the Desert News, published an article in 1978 detailing an event in which several people claimed to have seen a large, dome-shaped, unidentified flying object with intense lights. The event shook area residents who became equal parts excited and terrified of the possibility of alien visitors in their quiet desert community. Other reports told of strange noises and visions, as well as more unidentified lights, and the area surrounding the Skinwalker Ranch became more and more well known as a hotspot for UFO sightings and other paranormal activity. In 1994, nearly 100 years after the original house was built on the property, it was bought by a new couple named Terry and Gwen Sherman. Although the area already had a reputation, it was Terry and Gwen Sherman who would go on to cement the name Skinwalker Ranch into the minds of millions of Americans. It all began before the couple even purchased the property. They were told that they would only be allowed to buy the land if they promised not to dig anywhere on it without getting permission from the previous owners, the Myers. The Shermans thought it was a little strange, but with old family homes, it used to be a common tradition to bury dead family members on the family property, so they figured it might be related to something like that and shrugged it off. After all, if they wanted to dig during some future project and the Myers reacted unreasonably, the Shermans were pretty confident that they would win in court over the matter anyway. When they got to the ranch, they were impressed by the land, which would be a good place for Terry to raise his famous Black Angus cattle. As they approached the house, however, things started to get a little weird. The Shermans noticed that there were bars on the windows, and huge deadbolts adorned the inside and outside of every single door in the house. Both sides of the house had posts set into the outside walls that anchored long metal chains with a ring on the end, the kind some people might use to tether a dog to prevent it from wandering off. As we know, the Myers had never reported anything strange happening on the property, which begs the questions: why were they so paranoid, and what exactly were they afraid of? Even though the extensive security measures were a little unsettling, the Shermans weren't the kind of people to walk away from a good opportunity, and the ranch was just too good a deal to pass up. Gwen and Terry bought the house and came back on the day of their move-in with a truck full of their belongings, their kids, 3 dogs, and Terry's dad. As they were unpacking things from the truck, the entire family caught sight of a massive creature. Apparently not having spent much time in Utah yet, as they had moved to the ranch from New Mexico, the Shermans thought that dogs in Utah were just extra big, like it was a regional thing or something. Thinking that it was someone's pet coming over to check out the new neighbors, Terry's dad actually reached out a hand to the hulking figure. Side note, if an animal you don't know approaches you out of nowhere, do not assume it's friendly. The consequences could be deadly. Luckily for Terry's dad, however, it was at exactly that moment that the creature, which looked like some kind of wolf or dog, except that it was almost 5 feet tall on all fours, turned to look at the cattle that had already been settled into a pen nearby. The creature lunged at the pen with unnatural speed, locking its jaws around a calf that had been poking its head through the fence. Horrified, Terry and his dad attempted to stop the animal by kicking it and hitting it with a baseball bat. It didn't even seem to notice, so Terry ran back to the truck to get his gun. He shot the creature several times, but there seemed to be no effect. Terry sent his son running into the house to get a shotgun, and when he had it, Terry shot at the animal directly in the heart. It didn't drop, so he shot at it again, and a chunk of the animal's flesh was torn off from the impact. It still barely seemed to register the damage, and after staring at Terry for a few moments, it walked off into the trees that surrounded that part of the property. The 2 men tried to follow it, but eventually they lost sight of it and the tracks mysteriously ended in the middle of a field. They couldn't find any trace of the animal after that point, so they gave up and continued moving into their new house. They would later describe the creature as having blue, human-like eyes, and as scary as the incident was, they tried to move on with business as usual. They had done some serious damage to it and assumed that it would die from the injuries, no longer posing a threat to them or their cattle. Some time passed after the incident before Gwen, who had just returned from running errands and had gotten out of her car to close the gate behind her, saw 2 more beasts like the one before. She had just gotten back into her car when she saw them. One of them watched her from a distance, but the other stood right outside her car window, so close its breath fogged the glass. Gwen barely had time to register what she was seeing before she hit the gas pedal, speeding off toward the house in terror.
Sure that their home was being plagued by roaming wolves and not knowing who else to turn to, the Shermans went to their local tribal office for help. To their shock, the tribal office employees informed them that wolves hadn't been in the area for nearly a century. If there were no wolves here, then what had they seen? Surely the creatures were way too big to be coyotes, but there seemed to be no other explanation. At this point, the Shermans had no idea what to think, so they gave up and went home. They didn't stop seeing the huge wolf-like beast though, and over the next 18 months, before they moved into a new house, things only got weirder and creepier. They saw other strange creatures and mysterious lights in the sky. These lights didn't seem to be attached to anything, but were just these weird, floating orbs of light that followed them around, appearing all over the property. As if that wasn't enough to make anyone want to move, the Shermans experienced repeated events of things being moved or going missing. Groceries that had been put away mysteriously ended up back in the shopping bags on the kitchen counter. Tools that Terry used for work around the ranch would go missing when he turned his back, only to reappear inexplicably in a tree somewhere on the property. Massive holes began to appear in their yard and fields overnight. The dirt that had once filled the space had seemingly vanished into thin air. Terry and his son repeatedly saw flying vehicles prowling the air over the property. There was a lot going on at Skinwalker Ranch, and not all of it involved pretty light shows and harmless pranks like moving objects. Cattle were repeatedly attacked, and Terry would find their bodies completely drained of blood. Some of them were missing all of their organs as well, and the gruesome sight was shattering for the Shermans, both emotionally and financially. Even the family's 3 dogs eventually became targets. They ran away from the property one night, chasing after some of the mysterious lights, never to be seen again. Remains that may have belonged to the dogs were later found, but they were beyond recognition. The Shermans were eventually forced to sell the property and move to another house in the area. Terry stayed on as a rancher for the new owner since he was already familiar with the place and had a reputation for being fantastic at his job. The Shermans sold the ranch to millionaire Robert Bigelow, a hotel tycoon who had an interest in the supernatural, including aliens. After the Shermans sold the ranch and went public with their story, interest in what was happening quickly rose, but Bigelow shut it down as quickly as possible. He installed big fences, cameras, and armed security guards to make it clear that visitors were not welcome. Bigelow brought in a team of scientists, many of whom had previously worked for the FBI and the military, to see just what was going on the Skinwalker Ranch. Cameras would suddenly stop working, go missing, or undergo vandalism that no one witnessed, and nothing was ever picked up on other cameras in the area, even when they were pointed right at whatever was happening.
No one really knows what Bigelow and his team of scientists were able to uncover, if anything. But in 2016, he sold his property to a shell corporation called Adamantium Holding. The new owner had gone to extreme lengths to hide his identity and his reasons for buying the property, but he has since gone public. Recently, Brandon Fugel has come forward to say that he is the owner of the property and he is a real estate mogul. So what do you guys think about the Skinwalker Ranch? Is it really a hotspot for visitors from other worlds and mysterious creatures? We have been there ourselves and we spent about 24 hours there, and you guys can see the video yourself. It'll pop up on the screen right now. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. If you love mysteries and spooky stories, like this video and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and keep up on our latest uploads. We'll see you guys next time.